Dumbledore's death was one of the most heartbreaking moments in the entire series. A turning point that shattered the illusion of safety Harry had always relied on. But not only that, it represented a distinct shift in innocence in the series. A moment that made it clear that no one, not even the greatest wizard alive, was beyond Voldemort's reach. It also left things looking pretty bleak for the good guys, with Death Eaters taking over Hogwarts, Voldemort's power growing, and Harry running out of options. And while Dumbledore's death doesn't actually happen until the Half-Blood Prince, what many fans may not realize is that it was hinted at as early as Prisoner of Azkaban. Today we're talking about the death of Albus Dumbledore, and what might have happened if he'd survived the night atop the Astronomy Tower. This one's going to be a doozy, so I'll probably end up breaking it into separate parts. Anyway, let's dive into it. Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In Chapter 11 of The Prisoner of Azkaban, Dumbledore invites Trelawney to join his Christmas dinner in the Great Hall. Trelawney quickly refuses, declaring, "I dare not, Headmaster. If I join the table, we shall be 13. Nothing could be more unlucky. Never forget that when 13 dine together, the first to rise will be the first to die." Trelawney thought that by joining the group and effectively making it a party of 13, that she would inevitably end up killing someone, the first to rise. And while this may sound superstitious, Trelawney was actually spot on. And what she didn't know at the time was that Peter Pettigrew, aka Scabbers, was at the table, meaning that 13 people were already dining. Shortly after, Dumbledore is the first person to rise, and he is the next to die. Effectively, Trelawney told Dumbledore that he was going to die, just neither of them knew it. The rule of 13 continues throughout the series, and is actually proven in a couple of other circumstances. The next is in Chapter 5 of The Order of the Phoenix at Grimmauld Place, where Sirius Black is the first to rise from the table. These moments create a quiet but powerful sense of fatalism in the series. They foreshadow the idea that certain events are not just tragic, but inevitable, that destiny, prophecy, and deep magical forces are all converging toward a single outcome. But that's also exactly what makes today's question so fascinating. Because if Trelawney's omen, the pattern of 13, the prophecy binding Harry and Voldemort, the fatal curse placed on the Gaunt ring, and Voldemort's long-standing intent to eliminate Dumbledore, if all of these forces seem to be steering the story toward Dumbledore's fall, what happens if he doesn't die? What if the single most critical turning point in Half-Blood Prince never occurs? Let's be honest here. Dumbledore surviving isn't some minor tweak to the story. It unleashes a massive butterfly effect, an axis shift that the entire final book is built upon. Remove it and everything changes. Draco's fate becomes uncertain, Hogwarts' fall may never happen, Harry's journey becomes fundamentally different, the Elder One's allegiance shifts in unpredictable ways, and the entire path to Voldemort's defeat is rewritten from scratch. Dumbledore's death wasn't the result of just some impromptu lack of judgment. It was strategic, calculated, and necessary for his plan to function. So if he lives, then his plan collapses, at least as it originally existed. And someone, Snape, Draco, Voldemort, Harry, someone's path will break in ways the original story never explored. Dumbledore's death takes place near the end of Half-Blood Prince on the Astronomy Tower. By this point, he is severely weakened by the potion he drank in the Horcrux cave, but also chooses not to defend himself when Draco Malfoy disarms him. The Death Eaters arrive moments later, and when Snape appears, he carries out the plan he and Dumbledore agreed upon earlier in the year. He casts the Killing Curse. To everyone watching, it looks like a betrayal. Snape showing his true colors and murdering the man that gave him a second chance. But in truth, Snape's spell is only the final step in something that began long before that night. The beginning of Dumbledore's end comes the moment he finds the Gaunt ring in the ruins of the Gaunt Shack. He knows it carries dangerous magic, and yet, because it contains the Resurrection Stone, the object tied to his deepest personal regret, he hesitates. And it's this hesitation that ultimately costs him. After slipping the ring onto his finger, Voldemort's curse takes hold immediately. For most wizards, the lethal curse would have killed them on the spot, but thanks to Snape's help, they're able to slow it down, trapping it in Dumbledore's hand and stopping its spread for a time. However, even though they were able to slow it down, both wizards knew the truth. Nothing can stop it forever, and from the moment Dumbledore wears the ring, he is living on borrowed time. Yes, Snape's killing curse ends his life, but the ring is what made that ending unavoidable. After putting the ring on his finger, Dumbledore knows he has, at most, a year left, and more importantly, that there will come a point when he can no longer meaningfully contribute to the war against Voldemort. So with his strength fading and his clock already ticking, he begins planning around his own death. If he cannot avoid the end, he can at least decide how it happens and what it will accomplish. This is when he turns to Snape. Dumbledore asks him to take on the responsibility of killing him, both to protect Draco Malfoy from becoming a murderer and to ensure Snape remains firmly embedded in Voldemort's inner circle. At first, Snape balks at the idea, asking why Dumbledore won't simply let Draco carry out the task Voldemort assigned to him. Dumbledore answers plainly. Draco's soul is not yet damaged, and he refuses to be the reason it becomes so. If you don't mind dying, said Snape roughly, why not let Draco do it? That boy's soul is not yet so damaged, said Dumbledore. I would not have it ripped apart on my account. Because of the unbreakable vow that Snape had made with Narcissa, Snape is now obligated to act on Draco's behalf if Draco cannot complete the mission. And so, killing Dumbledore becomes the only way for Snape to both honor the vow and protect Draco from a fate that would haunt him for the rest of his life. But Dumbledore's choice also serves another purpose. By arranging for Snape to kill him without ever being defeated or disarmed, Dumbledore hoped to break the chain of allegiance tied to the Elder Wand entirely. If no one mastered him before he died, the Wand's power would end with him, and Voldemort would never be able to claim true ownership. What Dumbledore didn't foresee, however, was Draco Malfoy disarming him, an act that unknowingly transferred the Wand's allegiance and unraveled his plan. And finally, Dumbledore's death removes himself from Harry's path. Without Dumbledore there to guide him, Harry is forced to take responsibility for the Horcrux hunt and to confront Voldemort alone, the very conditions the prophecy seems to demand. Dumbledore's death is a deliberate move designed to protect Draco, preserve Snape's position, neutralize the Elder Wand, and set Harry on the only path that could defeat Voldemort. Remove this moment, and the structure of the final act of the series changes entirely. TLDR, Dumbledore's death was huge, but now that we've established the impact it had, let's tackle the first big question. How could Dumbledore have survived? Because there are only really two ways this could have happened. The first is the simplest and the most grounded in canon. Dumbledore never puts on the ring. He recognizes it as a Horcrux, identifies the Resurrection Stone, feels that old temptation rising inside him, and resists it. No hesitation, no curse, no ticking clock quietly eating away at his life. And the second possibility is a lot more complicated, and also, quite frankly, unlikely. In this scenario, Dumbledore does put on the ring, but somehow neutralizes the curse, either by more effective countermagic, intervention beyond Snape, or discovering a way to stop the spell before it spreads. While this second scenario is undoubtedly intriguing, I personally believe that it's too heavily reinforced in canon that the curse is effectively unstoppable. Therefore, it's hard for me to subscribe to the idea that Dumbledore could have lived this way even in a hypothetical scenario, which leaves the first and cleanest branch of the timeline. In this scenario, everything hinges on a single moment inside the ruined Gaunt shack. Dumbledore picks up the ring. He recognizes the stone. But this time, he stops himself. He remembers that the stone is embedded in a Horcrux created by the most dangerous dark wizard alive. He remembers the vow he made to himself decades earlier, that the Hallows were a temptation he could no longer trust. He still wouldn't know how to destroy it yet, but that wouldn't matter. What matters is that he never puts it on, never triggers the curse, and never sets the clock ticking on his own life. And just like that, the fatal curse never touches him. Dumbledore walks out of the Gaunt shack intact, uninjured, and most importantly, not dying. And this alone shifts the direction of the story dramatically. For one, Dumbledore retains his full strength. That means his plans are no longer colored by the knowledge that he has less than a year to live. The urgency, secrecy, and fatalism that shaped his decisions in Half-Blood Prince disappear. Dumbledore suddenly has time to strategize properly, time to act directly, and time to prevent the series of events that would otherwise lead to his death on the Astronomy Tower. It also raises an immediate question. Does Draco Malfoy still receive the mission to kill him? Almost certainly yes, because Voldemort's intention to eliminate Dumbledore long predates the ring incident. And even in a world where Dumbledore is fully healthy, Voldemort ultimately saw Draco's task as a convenient suicide mission, a punishment for Lucius's failures, and a way to terrorize the Malfoy family while testing Snape's loyalty. Whether Dumbledore is weak or at full power doesn't truly change Voldemort's expectations. He never believes Draco can kill him. What does change, however, is the entire dynamic of the mission. A Dumbledore who isn't dying, who hasn't arranged his own death, and who is fully capable of acting on his own terms is far more difficult to corner, manipulate, or surprise. With no curse ticking away and no plan requiring Snape to kill him, Dumbledore suddenly has far more control over the situation, and far less incentive to allow events to unfold the way they do in the original story. But the biggest change by far comes down to Snape. Without the curse, Dumbledore never asks Snape to kill him. There is no arranged death, no plan for Snape to follow, and no secret agreement waiting to unfold on the Astronomy Tower, which means that the unbreakable vow Snape makes with Narcissa suddenly becomes a genuine threat. He is now bound to assist Draco in his mission, and if Draco fails, to finish the job himself. In the original timeline, Snape agrees to the vow because he already knows killing Dumbledore is part of the plan. But in this alternate timeline, he would be agreeing without that safety net, and without any assurance from Dumbledore that such a killing is justified. This single alteration sends the story in an entirely different direction. Snape begins the school year without a coordinated plan, without Dumbledore's explicit guidance about how to handle Draco's task, and with the looming possibility that the vow may force him into killing the very man he owes everything to. And what Snape does next, whether he protects Draco, defies Voldemort, or sacrifices himself, reshapes the war entirely. With the curse no longer threatening Dumbledore's life, everything about Snape's role in the coming year changes, and for the first time, Snape is standing on a knife's edge with no clear script to follow. And I think this forces him into one of three possible paths. The first possibility is that Snape refuses to take the unbreakable vow altogether. Bellatrix and Narcissa arrive at Spinner's End expecting absolute assurance that Snape will protect Draco and finish the job if he cannot. But without Dumbledore's blessing, without a plan justifying Dumbledore's death, Snape has no reason to bind himself magically to such a task. However, the risk associated with this path would be that it would expose his true loyalties. Bellatrix is already openly suspicious of him, and I suspect that a refusal here could have easily exposed him as a double agent. The second possibility is that Snape takes the unbreakable vow anyway. He may do it to protect Draco, to maintain his position inside Voldemort's inner circle, or simply because he knows refusal is a death sentence. But if he swears the vow without a secret arrangement from Dumbledore, the implications are far more dangerous. The vow now obligates Snape to kill Dumbledore if Draco fails, and this time Dumbledore has not asked him to. Snape would be forced into a direct conflict between his loyalty to Dumbledore and the magic of the vow itself. And the third possibility is that Snape says yes to the vow, but secretly spends the entire year sabotaging Draco's mission as much as possible. This mirrors what he does in canon, but in this alternate timeline, Snape isn't working toward a pre-agreed outcome. He's stalling for time, trying to keep Draco alive, trying to keep Dumbledore alive, and trying not to trigger the vow. It's a balancing act that becomes increasingly unsustainable, because sooner or later, Draco will reach the tower, the Death Eaters will arrive, and Snape will be forced to choose between killing Dumbledore or dying himself. You may disagree, but to me, the third possibility seems like the most likely. I think that Snape taking the vow and then spending the entire year quietly sabotaging Draco's mission fits his character better than outright refusal or openly planning to kill Dumbledore. Refusing the vow would expose him. Intending to kill Dumbledore would betray everything that keeps him tethered to the light. But agreeing to the vow while working behind the scenes to protect both Draco and Dumbledore, that's exactly the kind of impossible position Snape has. However, Snape still knows some sort of final confrontation is only a matter of time, and all of this means that the Astronomy Tower plays out very, very differently. If we really take a close look at each of these characters and their motivations, I think that one outcome stands above the rest. Snape doesn't kill Dumbledore. The only reason Snape kills him in canon is because Dumbledore explicitly asks him to. Snape is willing to do something horrific if he believes it's necessary and justified, but never casually, never without a purpose, and never without Dumbledore's direction. Without that direction, I think that killing Dumbledore, who besides Harry seems to really be all the wizarding world has got in the fight against Voldemort, and it becomes the one thing Snape would absolutely avoid. When Snape arrives on the tower in this scenario, he isn't walking into a prearranged plan. He's walking into a disaster. Draco is in way over his head. The Death Eaters are seconds from pushing the situation past the point of no return, and the unbreakable vow is tightening around Snape with every passing moment. Snape wouldn't kill a healthy Dumbledore. There's just no chance. So I think that he would likely end up pursuing the only other option he had, turning on the Death Eaters and stopping the attack entirely. It's important to understand something about the unbreakable vow. It doesn't force a person to complete a task in one specific way. It forces them to act in good faith toward the purpose of the promise. Snape didn't vow to kill Dumbledore at all costs. He vowed to protect Draco and to help him succeed. If killing Dumbledore becomes impossible, morally, circumstantially, or strategically, then Snape can still satisfy the vow by choosing the only remaining path that protects Draco from ruin, stopping the attack entirely. The scene erupts into chaos, but in that moment of confusion, Dumbledore has the chance he never gets in the original timeline. He speaks to Draco, he offers him protection, and this time, with Snape defending him and no killing curse hanging in the air, Draco actually accepts it. And that is what breaks the mission. Not Snape, not the vow, not a killing curse. Because Draco's acceptance of Dumbledore's protection voids the task altogether. The moment Draco defects, there is no failure for the vow to enforce. Snape has fulfilled his promise to protect him, and he no longer has any obligation to kill Dumbledore. Dumbledore lives, Draco survives, and Snape is no longer bound to carry out Voldemort's impossible assignment. Hogwarts doesn't fall, the Death Eaters lose Draco, nobody dies, at least not Dumbledore, Snape, or Draco, and the story reshapes itself almost instantly. And on that note, I think this is a good place to stop and save the rest for the next part. If I try to cram everything into one video, we're going to end up with an hour-long monster on our hands, and I've got to get these videos out more often than that. Let me know down in the comment section below what you think happens next, and maybe I'll throw it into the next video. If you enjoy the content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live